So before I start the eyes, I want to make sure that the brows are looking good. And so I'm just adding a little bit more clay. I already added a little bit to that side, and I added more on the right side because it needed more clay over there. So then I'm smoothing it in, and I'll do the rest of the smoothing off camera, but you can see how that just kind of fills in the shape. And so we kind of have a place for these eyes to be before we actually start giving them the detail. And then another thing I like to do is make sure we're headed where we want to be with the nose. And so I like to use a ball stylus and kind of come down the side of the nose on both sides, leaving the bridge a little bit wider than we would for a female doll. Like that. And then I'm going to actually kind of draw in some nostrils. I just start with some basic circles and they look funky at first. That's just kind of what happens. So then we bring down the nose. Make sure we don't have a little pig nose going on. And then I like to kind of bring down the tip and then tap the sides of the nose back up. Like that. So I'll smooth all this in a little bit more, and then we'll get started on the eyes. Alright, so next I'm just adding a little ball of clay. Just teeny tiny. I'm just kind of smoothing it in a bit there. I've done this to the other side already. And then I'm going to take a brush and smooth this at this state. So we'll have more of a drawing surface that's all smooth for these eyes. I want to really press that in. And try to smooth away all the little wrinkles and stuff. So I'm going to use some of the smoothing gel, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so I've just done a bit more with a tiny brush like this, and you can see it's already starting to look like eyes for him. And I really haven't sculpted other than just with this brush. So that's good. Now for me, I'm having to really concentrate because I'm so used to making sexy fairies and men that don't exactly look like this Conductor, so I'm trying to dial it down and maybe go for more something in between a Santa and a sexy fairy. So first we'll just get the eyes in and then worry about the particulars in a bit. So right now I'm just kind of going to draw half of the iris on both sides. And then I'm going to press in for the pupil, and I want it to be a little bit high. Okay, so that's good for a first go. On this side, I need to kind of define the bottom of it a little bit more too. And then up for the pupil, have to wipe my tip because you get little pieces of clay that want to stick. And then pupil up high. Okay, now obviously they look a bit different from each other, so I need some adjusting. But I like to just have something to work with. So for the eyelid, I'm just kind of going out to the side. I'm going to move up a little bit and bring down that lid. Okay, he looks like he's looking over to the side, so I'm going to kind of adjust that a little bit better. And the pointy part on the inside of the eye. And then this eye is pretty well hooded, and so I'm going to draw in a little bit more of a eyelid. by just going right in that top and making a little crack. Okay, so that's how you do it. Now I'm going to need to put it close to my face and just work on symmetry. And I'll just be looking at both eyes really close to my face and try to get them to look the same. Okay, so that's a bit more symmetry for him. There, I think that's easier to see. Okay, and now I'm going to add a little bit of clay to the end of his nose so I can kind of fix those nostrils a bit. And then I'm also going to add a couple little balls right along here, so he's got a little bit more of a defined brow. I think that'll help to manly him up a bit more to be a conductor. So, just want you to see the size. So about like that. And I'll just do through here. So that's the clay I've added, and I'll just smooth it in with my wooden tool, and hopefully he won't end up looking too much like a caveman, but if he does, I can always just flatten this back out. Alright, so next what I've done, instead of just using the ball stylus, I'm using this little tool that I made, which I just love. It's the rubber tip tool, but I attached it to a pen with a skewer inside as well, and then the tip is fastened nicely here with some epoxy sculpt. And the reason I like it is because the ones that I was selling, they're always at an angle, and it's just harder to sculpt. I like it better where it's actually like a pen that you're drawing with. And so I made up a bunch of these. You can find on my website as well. And the nice part about the rubber tip tool is that it's so pointy and thin that you can go in and kind of clean up the outline of the eye a bit. This side really needs it. And when it gets like that, I don't know if you can tell, but like there's a bunch of little tiny clay pieces. That's when you need to come through with a brush again and kind of help those pieces calm down, and then go back in with your stylus or rubber tip tool. Okay. So he's looking pretty good. I mean, he's just in a rough state. So you want to be sure with a ball stylus to go through and make your little indentation here for above the lip. And then it's nice to go in with a brush and kind of shape these lips a bit, because you can kind of just adjust it however you want. And the same with the nose and the nostrils. It helps to go through, and I added that ball of clay on the end. And then I kind of pull down on the outsides of the nostrils a bit. And I usually kind of draw in this nose wing pretty deeply, and then kind of use a brush to soften it back up. And I usually use the tiny ball stylus to draw that in. So I'm just going to do some brush work on him for a bit, and then see where we're at as far as sculpting is concerned. And once you get his face how you want it, then you can start adding expression a little bit more. So I want him to look happier instead of sultry. But you can tell, let's see, yeah, he's looking pretty good. Pretty close profile there. The rest of his head and such, I'm not going to worry about until I get this part done and baked. Then I'll figure out how to do his little hairdo after that. Okay, so here he is. I'm about ready to bake him with just my heat gun. And let's see, I was going to tell you, I put a little bit of a lower lid on this with just a little worm of clay. I added just a little bit more to his lips because they were looking kind of flat. And I've just kind of been pulling up on his brow just a little bit, and then just really used the rubber tip tool to kind of get in there and draw in his eyes a bit. So that's how he's looking, and I think he's going to be pretty cute. See how he looks compared to this. He's a handsome man, but not too sexy for a conductor. I think he'll just be right. We'll see what he looks like with his wig later. So I get a lot of questions about soft baking, and I just wanted to let you see what it's like when you use a Genesis gun. I need to fix the back of his neck first, and then I'll show you the baking process. So I'm going to take my heat gun, and I have it on the higher heat, and then I'm just going to heat him until his face turns matte. Right now it's pretty shiny. There, you can see it turned right there. And I'm just going to do the back too so it doesn't squish so easily. And that's how you do a soft bake with a Genesis-like heat gun. And please be aware that that was just to set the outer skin of this so the features don't get ruined. And I still need to put it in the oven and do the full 30-minute bake. But I just like to do that soft baking so I don't end up squishing him, because I need to get his head to fit on the body. But that's how he's going to look. And I wanted to mention that I made his head just a little bit on the small side because we're going to be adding the hair, this wig design to him, and that's going to make his head look a lot bigger. So I just kind of wanted to be aware of that.